Hey guys, welcome back to Coach Hall Writes. AP exams are over, and a lot of you are now rising seniors ready to tackle the college application process. And I know that this process can be incredibly daunting, so I wanted to start a new series on this channel to help you navigate through the various steps of that process. This video is the first video in that series, and today we're going to be talking about how to make your college list. When it comes to the college list making process, I have found that my own students tend to fall into three major categories. There's the group of students who has no clue where they want to go to school. They have not even thought about making a list. And then there's the group that's sort of in the middle. They have their heart set on one particular school. They don't really know which other schools they might want to apply to, but they know their top choice. And then there's this third group that has this growing list of schools that are on their radar, and they keep getting stuff sent to their email inbox, or maybe they get brochures sent to their house, and they don't really know how to sort through it all because it's basically a lot of paperwork and emails, and they don't know which colleges they actually care about. So regardless of where you fall, if it's one of those three categories or somewhere in between, I recommend that you identify your preferences and your must-haves, because this is going to help you as you start to do your research later on. So preferences are going to be either factors or features that would be nice if the college had that. And must-haves are going to be things that you consider non-negotiable, meaning that if the college did not have that particular feature or factor, you wouldn't want to go there. At least when I was applying for colleges, if it didn't have one of my must-haves, I didn't bother to apply there because I couldn't see myself going there. And that was actually a distinction that I made for myself that might help you guys as you're working through this process. There's going to be colleges that would be a good match for you, but they might not be a good fit for you. So a match means that on paper, it sounds good. You're a good candidate for them, they're a good candidate for you. However, it might not be a good fit. A good fit means that you could actually see yourself going there. So what I did here is I created a list of certain factors that you might want to consider. Now, I don't expect you to have a strong opinion about everything on this list, but if anything on this list sparks a strong feeling within you, then chances are that is either going to be one of your preferences or one of your must-haves. Now, this list is not meant to be entirely inclusive, so if there's something else that is highly important to you, feel free to add it, but think about the different things that you want out of your college experience. So for a lot of students, cost is a factor, but keep in mind that there is financial aid. Some students have very strong opinions about a public school or a private school, or maybe an in-state school or an out-of-state school. Some students really care about the size of the school. They either want to go to a really big school or a really small school. So think about what truly matters to you. Is it a preference or is it a must-have? Once you've identified your preferences and your must-haves, you're ready to start doing some research and making your college list. Now, it's entirely possible that you already know some colleges that you intend to apply to, and you might even know some students who currently go there. If that's the case, I would recommend reaching out to those students, ask them what they like about the college or what they don't like, ask them about their dorm and the cafeteria food. I'm sure they would be happy to talk to you. Now, let's say that you know of a school that you really want to apply to, but you don't know anyone that currently attends that school. You can turn to YouTube. Several schools have students who vlog about their day. You could also do a virtual campus tour. This is going to be especially helpful during COVID-19 because a lot of campuses are not open to the public at this time. Or if it's an out-of-state school, you might not be able to travel at this time. So you can look at their website and basically figure out all you need to know through pictures and videos. Some students might have their heart set on a particular major and they might not really care where the school actually is. If that's the case, you might start to look for rankings lists based on that particular major. Or you could just look at rankings lists in general because those can be a really good place to start if you're not really sure where you want to go. As you start to do your research, you're going to realize that each school has its own unique admissions criteria. And I recommend that you start to think of schools in three different ways: a reach school, a target school, and a safety school. So a reach school is basically a school that you are not necessarily very likely to get into. It does not mean that you shouldn't apply. All Ivy League schools are a reach school. Other prominent schools like Stanford or Rice or Emory, those are also reach schools in my opinion. So if the acceptance rate is less than, say, 30%, chances are I would consider it a reach school. Because of COVID-19, many schools have said that they're not going to actually require ACT or SAT scores. However, you can still probably find information on the internet about the average SAT or ACT score for incoming freshmen and also the average GPA for incoming freshmen. And you can use this as sort of a litmus test. If you are beneath those requirements or at the very bottom of those ranges, chances are that school is going to be a reach school for you. Now, it's perfectly fine to have reach schools on your list. You just don't want to have an entire college list of reach schools. For many students, their dream school might actually be a reach school, and that's also okay. But you want to make sure that you're also applying to plenty of target and safety schools. So, a target school is basically a school that you're likely to get into. You fit into their criteria very well. A safety school is a school that you are very likely to get into, almost definitely going to get in. These schools tend to have very high acceptance rates. So then the question becomes, how many colleges should I put on my list? And to be honest, this is going to vary depending on your situation, but generally speaking, it's good to have a minimum of 3 to 5 schools on your list, especially if those 3 to 5 schools are either target or safety schools. And as far as a maximum, I would say no more than 20 to 30. Any more than that, and it's going to be very difficult for you to keep track of all those schools. It's also entirely possible that you might start out with 3 to 5 schools, and as you do research, you might want to add more schools, or as you start to finalize your plans, you might actually subtract some schools from the list and decide you don't actually want to apply there, and that is totally okay as well. As you're building your list, it's important to recognize that your college list should not be entirely composed of reach schools. Conversely, I've seen situations where students have said, I don't even want to put that school on my list because there's no way I'm going to get in. And I think it's important to keep an open mind. It's okay to have a couple reach schools on your list, especially because it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to apply. If you decide at a later date that you don't want to apply, then you don't have to apply. But there's no harm in putting a couple reach schools on your list as well. Now, if your top choice school is a target or safety school, and you definitely want to go there, then it's okay to not have any reach schools on your list. But the idea is to have a little bit of diversity. Don't dream too big and not be in reality, but at the same time, don't sell yourself short either. In working with students in the past, one of the things that students sometimes forget about is the fact that there is usually a college application fee. And I say usually because sometimes this depends on your circumstances. And also, at the time that I'm recording this, we're in the middle of COVID-19, and it's entirely possible that colleges are going to make certain accommodations in the fall. But that being said, if you are thinking about college application fees, there are certain ways that you can actually streamline that process. One is to apply to schools that accept the Common App or the Coalition App. One of the things that I like about the Common App and also the Coalition App is that they're sort of like one-stop shopping for college applications. Now, not every school is going to accept the Common App or the Coalition App. Some schools have their own unique application, but the Common App is a way for you to actually apply to multiple schools using one application. And basically what happens is you create an account. You can check off up to 20 schools that you want to apply to out of over 700 that are a Common App school, and then you get to actually add in your supplemental essays and anything else that the college requires. It's a very streamlined process. So that way, if you want to apply to 20 schools and they're Common App schools, you don't have to pay 20 different fees. Now, the Coalition App is a little bit smaller, but there are some schools that are a Coalition App school, and I've actually seen a few schools where they accept both the Common App and the Coalition App. You don't actually need to apply twice. So, in terms of building your list, if finances are an issue, if there's a school that you really want to go to, put it on your list. Don't let the application fee be a reason why it doesn't make your list. That being said, as you get further into the fall, if finances become a pressing issue and you don't think you're going to get into that school, or maybe that's not where your heart truly is, then you can decide, hey, I don't want to waste the money by applying. But right now, we're just kind of cultivating a list. It's good to be open-minded and have some options. So, as I said, for many students, making a list is an ongoing process. It's not something that happens in one sitting and then you're done. Students tend to add and subtract from this list. So, it's important to keep an open mind, especially in the beginning. And as you move through this application process, then you can become more selective. It's incredibly important to stay organized throughout the college application process. If you are organized from the beginning, it is going to save you some stress later. So, one of the things that I recommend you do is to make a physical spreadsheet of your college list. Don't just keep a note in your phone, don't write it down on paper, don't keep it in your head. Make a spreadsheet. The more detailed your spreadsheet is, the more helpful it will be as you actually start the application process. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you one method for keeping a spreadsheet, and I'm going to link this spreadsheet below in case you actually want to start your own copy just like this one. So this is a template that I use with my college English students, and there is one feature that some students aren't aware of, but this comes in handy in a lot of cases, and that is the ability to freeze a row or column. So you do this by clicking view, and then it says freeze, and you could do 1 row, 2 rows, 1 column, 2 columns, or anything like that. So I've already done this. I decided to freeze the first column and also the first row. So you can see here that I typed in Hendrix College. That's actually my alma mater. And so what that means is that because I decided to freeze it, as I move across, those words don't move, and that makes it a lot easier to keep track of the row that I'm in. Now, as far as the stuff up here, if I scroll down and I wanted to go to, let's say, row 80, hopefully you're not going to be going to row 80 on a spreadsheet like this, but if you did, then the stuff at the top does not move, so you can keep track of the different columns as well. So that is a feature that comes in handy. So what I recommend you do is to make different columns. I made a column for reach, target, or safety, so you would just put that here. You can even use conditional formatting. I personally really like to color code my spreadsheets, and one way to do that is to use conditional formatting. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on format, and then you're going to find conditional formatting. And for something like this, what I would do is I would actually click on the option that says text contains, and let's say that I want to say safety. Anytime that it says safety school, I want it to be green. So what would happen is that, well, actually, I want to have the range be B2 to, let's say, B20. Let's say I'm going to apply to that many schools. So I would apply that range, and then if I type in safety here, then it's going to turn green. So you could then have target be yellow and you could have reach be red if you wanted to categorize it that way, if you like to color code. Now, application type, what this means is basically like, is it the Common App? Is it the UC application if it's in California? Is it the Coalition app? Does it have its own application? So for cost, presumably you would put the total cost per year here, but not every college lists it that way. Sometimes they do it by semester. Sometimes they tell you the tuition cost, and then they tell you room and board separately, and then they tell you different meal plans. So it really depends on how you want to do that, but I would try to keep it relatively uniform based on each school. As you're looking up the tuition costs, you might find information about the school's scholarships. And if there is a particular scholarship that you want to apply for, if you're accepted, or one that you think you would be well suited for, it would be good to note that now. That way, if you are accepted, you could go back to this spreadsheet and say, oh, hey, I need to apply for this scholarship. So if that's the case, I would note the name of the scholarship and the deadline, and I would actually link to that particular website in this particular cell. In case you've never had to insert a link before, let me show you how to do that really quickly. So let's pretend that the name of this scholarship that we want to apply for is called the Hall Scholarship. Now, there's never going to be a scholarship named after me, but one can dream. So what you do is you type it in and you highlight it, and then you click on Insert. If you scroll down, you'll see where it says Insert Link. If you click that, you can actually paste the name of the website here. So the next column is for admissions requirements, and this is going to vary from school to school, and it's entirely possible that some schools are going to slightly alter their admissions requirements because of COVID-19. So let's say for this school that the admissions criteria is a 3.0 GPA. Let's say you need a 1200 SAT, and let's say you need 2 recommendation letters. So you'll notice that the box got bigger, and that's because I had it already set to do something called text wrapping, which basically means that the box is going to expand. So if you want to make your own spreadsheet, how you do that is you click on Format and you go to Text Wrapping, and then you check Wrap. So that allows it to do this instead of having it try to overflow into the next box. This next column is incredibly important because you need to be aware of your deadlines. I would recommend that you actually plug these into your phone and set reminders. You also might want to make note of who your admissions counselor is. So in this box, you might want to put their name and their email address. I've also added 2 columns here, and they're pretty self-explanatory, pros and cons. This allows you to determine whether or not the college meets your preferences or your must-haves, and it also allows you to determine what the negatives might be. These last 2 columns can come in handy later if you have to do a supplemental essay about why you want to go to that particular college, or if you're applying for a school-based scholarship, it's often better to include specifics about that college. And so instead of having to go back to the website and figure out why you want to go there, which extracurriculars you would like, and which classes you would like, it's actually really fun to do that in the beginning because it can get you excited about putting that college on your list. So what I would recommend you do is actually start to look at the extracurriculars and clubs that these colleges have to offer, and then insert a link to the website where it talks about that particular class or that particular club. That way, if you need to include that information in an essay later, you know exactly where to go. If you guys have any video topics that you want me to tackle in this series, let me know in the comments below. I will absolutely be doing videos about Common App essays and personal statements, so if that is something that is interesting to you, make sure that you are subscribed with your notifications turned on. And until next time, guys, happy writing!